My daughter, Ella, who had just celebrated her 15th birthday, suddenly developed an inexplicable zeal for her academic pursuits. This was the very same girl who, only a fortnight prior, had feigned unconsciousness to avoid a pop quiz. Naturally, I inquired about this dramatic shift. "Oh, it's just that Professor Darden's history class is so captivating. I have him every day now," she gushed, her face alight. I smiled, relieved she was finally embracing her studies. I didn't dwell on it until a week later when Ella began setting her alarm 30 minutes earlier, meticulously selecting whimsical, perfectly coordinated outfits. It wasn't that Ella was indifferent to her appearance, but her usual morning routine involved grabbing the nearest clean sweater and jeans. I distinctly recall teasing her, asking if she was trying to impress a particular boy. Her cheeks flushed a deep crimson. "Don't even joke about that, Mom," she exclaimed, her voice uncharacteristically sharp. That's when a prickle of unease started. I began scrutinizing her typical teenage mood fluctuations more closely, noticing they invariably revolved around Professor Darden. While she'd never explicitly admit it, I observed that if Professor Darden praised her contribution in class, she'd practically glide through the house for hours. Conversely, if he seemed to overlook her that day, she'd become taciturn, merely pushing food around her plate at dinner. A subtle test followed. "I've been considering moving you to a different history class. I think it might be beneficial for you to—" I couldn't even complete the sentence. She gaped at me, wide-eyed. "But why not, Mom?" I pressed. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. She didn't utter another word. Instead, she bolted for her room, her fingers already flying across her phone screen to text someone before she even reached the staircase. By this point, genuine alarm seized me. This was Ella, my typically candid girl who, just 2 months prior, had displayed utter indifference to anything school-related. She had always been an open book, and this sudden, secretive behavior felt profoundly wrong. That night, I tiptoed into her room and carefully examined her phone. I knew this was an egregious breach of privacy, but I honestly felt I had no alternative. A chilling premonition of danger gripped me. I meticulously scoured every messaging platform, searching for any connection, however remote, to Professor Darden. That's when I unearthed it. An obscure email thread on a secondary account she'd evidently created specifically for clandestine communication with him. The most recent message from him read, "Anticipating our rendezvous during my prep period tomorrow." My hand began to tremble as I opened the full thread, and what I read made bile rise in my throat. Professor Darden was telling my 15-year-old daughter that she possessed a maturity beyond her years, that she was exceptional, and that their bond transcended the conventional student-teacher dynamic. He'd sent her digital images of expensive trinkets he planned to bestow upon her, and she'd reply, confirming she was discreetly stashing them in her satchel. As soon as I finished reading, I quietly sifted through her satchel. There they were, high-end cosmetic palettes, sophisticated apparel, delicate silk scarves. All gifts from Professor Darden. I felt a surge of nausea. What do you do when the stark reality of your child being groomed crashes down on you? My immediate response was to photograph everything with my own phone, desperately suppressing the urge to scream. My initial instinct was to contact the school, the authorities, anyone. But I knew I couldn't, because Professor Darden wasn't just another faculty member. His family had made substantial contributions to the school's endowment. His brother was the precinct commander, recently lauded at our Parent-Teacher Association meeting for his commitment to child welfare. His wife was an active member of the school board. If I pursued official channels, I suspected they would not only dismiss my concerns, but potentially orchestrate my downfall. And so, I embarked on the only course of action I could conceive. I began documenting everything, all while maintaining a facade of normalcy. I volunteered at the school, unbeknownst to Ella, and meticulously observed his interactions with her. I captured images of the gifts and painstakingly backed up the email correspondence to multiple cloud servers. I initiated watch parties with Ella, focusing on documentaries about consent and discussing news segments detailing educators who had harmed students. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind as we watched. Often, she'd abruptly excuse herself, fidgeting restlessly and gnawing at her fingernails. The grim truth of her situation was finally dawning on her. Regrettably, this fragile progress was shattered by what is now etched as the most harrowing day of my existence. Tuesday, Ella arrived home early from school, citing illness. She sprinted to the bathroom and remained there for over an hour. I heard her muffled, uncontrollable sobs. I finally managed to persuade her to unlock the door, where I discovered her curled on the cold tiles, trembling violently. I gathered her into my arms, bracing for the worst. And between gaps, she uttered it. He said if I truly loved him, I would. I thought I was ready, but it hurt, and he just wouldn't stop. She then pulled away, scrambling toward the cabinet beneath the sink. With hands that shook uncontrollably, she retrieved a home pregnancy test. I watched in frozen horror as she held it up, revealing 2 distinct pink lines. The air caught in my lungs. My 15-year-old daughter was holding a positive pregnancy test, and the man responsible was her history professor. The same professor whose sibling commanded our local law enforcement. The same professor whose spouse held sway on the school board, making decisions about our children's safety. I clutched Ella close, her entire body shaking with each ragged breath. I needed to get her to a medical professional immediately, but I also needed to be shrewd. One misstep, and Darden's powerful connections would utterly crush us. "Darling, we need to go to urgent care," I whispered, stroking her hair. "I'm going to tell them you're experiencing severe abdominal pain, all right? Just follow my lead." Ella nodded weakly against my shoulder. I helped her to the car, my mind racing through the immediate necessities. The incriminating evidence on her phone, the gifts concealed in her satchel, the pregnancy test itself. I snatched everything and thrust it into my large handbag. There was no way I was leaving anything behind that could vanish. At the urgent care facility, I completed the intake forms with trembling hands while Ella remained huddled in a waiting room chair. When they called us back, I recounted a fabricated tale of sudden, intense stomach cramps and overwhelming nausea. The nurse took Ella's vital signs, then left us in the examination room. Mom, what if they tell? Ella whispered, fresh tears streaming down her face. Let me handle it, sweetheart. Just tell the doctor your stomach hurts really badly. Dr. Morgan, a young woman in her early 30s with kind eyes magnified by wire-rimmed spectacles, entered 10 minutes later. After examining Ella and ordering some tests, she drew me aside while a nurse remained with my daughter. Mrs. Tremaine, the pregnancy test returned positive, she stated quietly. Given Ella's age, I'm professionally obligated to file a report with... Please, I interjected, my voice raw with desperation. Can you grant me 24 hours, just one day, to process this shock and strategize how to protect my daughter? The man who did this, his brother is the precinct commander. His wife is on the school board. If you report this now, they will make it vanish. Dr. Morgan studied my face for a protracted moment. 24 hours, but I need you to comprehend this. I will be filing that report. Document everything you possibly can in the interim. Back at home, Ella went straight to bed, utterly spent from crying. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, meticulously creating encrypted folders and backing up every shred of evidence to multiple cloud services. Then, I recalled a tactic from a true crime podcast, recording applications disguised as other programs. I crept into Ella's room while she slept and installed one on her phone, hidden within what appeared to be a simple calculator app. If Darden attempted to contact her or corner her at school, I would have irrefutable proof. The following morning, Ella refused to get out of bed. I can't face him, Mom. I can't sit in his class and pretend everything is normal. You don't have to go today, I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. I'll call you in sick. But her absence from his class evidently triggered something in Professor Darden. By noon, Ella's phone was buzzing incessantly. I observed the torrent of messages rolling in on the monitoring app I'd installed. They originated from an unfamiliar number, clearly a burner phone. Where are you today? I'm worried about you, Ella. Please respond. You know how deeply I care? Your academic standing is suffering. You cannot afford to miss my class. Do not make a decision you'll come to regret. Remember our conversation. The messages shifted from feigned concern to thinly veiled threats over the course of hours. I meticulously screenshotted everything, my stomach churning with each new notification. Ella remained in her room, blankets pulled over her head, attempting to block out the torment. That evening, I made a decisive choice. I'm taking a leave of absence from work, I informed Ella over dinner. She barely touched her food. It's a family emergency, and I'm going to start volunteering at the school. Mom, no, Ella pleaded. He'll realize something's amiss. He'll what? I asked gently. Sweetheart, what is he threatening you with? Ella pushed her food around her plate. My grades, my future. He claims he holds the power to make or break my academic career, especially regarding recommendations for advanced high school programs. The sheer manipulation made me sick. He had pinpointed precisely what mattered most to my straight-A daughter and weaponized it against her. I commenced my volunteering duties in the main office the next day, busying myself with filing papers and answering phone calls. It afforded me the perfect vantage point to observe the hallways. During third period, Professor Darden's designated prep time, I witnessed him texting furiously on his phone. Moments later, Ella emerged into the hallway, walking slowly toward the music wing. I followed at a discreet distance, my heart hammering against my ribs. Professor Darden met her by the empty orchestra room, glancing around furtively before ushering her inside. I positioned myself to peer through the door's narrow window. He was showing her something on his phone, gesturing emphatically. Ella stood with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, nodding mechanically at whatever he conveyed. When she reappeared 10 minutes later, her face was ashen and drawn. I ducked into a nearby supply closet before Darden could spot me. But I had witnessed enough. He was still attempting to exert control over her, even now. That night, Ella's best friend Millie called the house phone, an anomaly as the girls exclusively communicated via text now. Mrs. Tremaine, can I speak with you about Ella? She's really unsettling me. My heart leaped. What do you mean, sweetie? She won't tell me what's wrong, but she's just different. She cries in the restroom between classes, and Professor Darden keeps calling her to his desk during history. Last week, I saw him place his hand on her shoulder, and she just froze. Millie, would you and your mother be willing to come over tomorrow? I believe we need to have a serious conversation. Jane, Millie's mother, arrived the following afternoon with Millie while Ella was at a doctor's appointment I'd scheduled. I presented some of the evidence. Not everything, but sufficient to convey the gravity. Jane's face went utterly white. Oh my goodness, she breathed, aghast. He's been giving Millie special attention too, asking her to remain after class, commenting on her outfits. I simply thought he was being friendly. Did he ever? I couldn't finish the chilling question. No, Jane stated firmly, but only because Millie consistently fabricated excuses to leave. She mentioned he made her uneasy, but couldn't articulate why. We reached a swift agreement to collaborate. Jane would document anything Millie observed, and we would synchronize our collected evidence. Two families were far more formidable to silence than one. But Professor Darden must have sensed the tightening net. That evening, our doorbell chimed at 8:30. Ella was doing homework at the kitchen table when I answered the door to find Darden himself, standing on our porch, holding a file folder. "Mrs. Tremaine," he began, a practiced, saccharine smile plastered on his face. "Ella inadvertently left an important assignment at school. I thought I'd personally deliver it, since it accounts for a substantial portion of her grade." "Thank you. But you can leave it with me," I stated, unmoving from the doorway. His smile wavered imperceptibly. "I would truly prefer to elucidate the assignment directly to Ella. It's quite intricate." "That will not be necessary." We stared at each other for a long, tense moment. His veneer of cordiality slipped just enough for me to glimpse the cold calculation in his eyes. Then, he handed me the folder. "Of course. Please ensure Ella grasps the paramount importance of completing all her coursework. Her future hinges on maintaining her exemplary academic record." The underlying threat was chillingly clear. After he departed, I discovered a neatly folded note tucked inside the folder. "Ella's college recommendations are contingent upon her continued excellence in all facets. Some transgressions are beyond repair." Ella read it and dissolved into tears. "See, I told you he's going to ruin everything. You're only making it worse." "Baby, he's the one who—" "I knew exactly what I was doing," she shrieked, pulling away. "I'm not a child, and now you're utterly destroying my entire future." She fled to her room and slammed the door with a resounding thud. I stood in the hallway, trembling. He had manipulated her so completely that she genuinely believed she was complicit, that she bore equal responsibility. The recording application indicated she had already sent him an apology for my perceived interference. I stared at my phone screen, watching Ella's apologetic text to Darden materialize in the monitoring app. My hands trembled as I read his immediate reply. "Your mother fails to comprehend our unique bond. Meet me tomorrow morning before school. We need to discuss your future." Ella's affirmation appeared within seconds. Okay. I couldn't allow this to transpire. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and positioned myself in the kitchen where I had a clear view of Ella's movements. At 6:30, she crept downstairs, fully dressed in one of the sophisticated outfits Darden had gifted her. I feigned making coffee. "You're up early," I remarked casually. She froze. "Just wanted to get to school ahead of time, work on a project." "I'll drive you." "No." The sudden panic in her voice confirmed my suspicions. "I mean, I'm perfectly fine walking." "It's too early and too dark. I'm driving you." The car ride was steeped in an uncomfortable silence. Ella stared out the window, her leg bouncing nervously. When we pulled up to the school, I observed Darden's vehicle already in the faculty parking lot. Ella practically leaped out of the car before I had fully stopped. "Ella, wait." But she was already hurrying toward the main entrance. I parked and followed, my volunteer badge prominently displayed. The hallways were largely deserted at this early hour. I heard muffled voices emanating from Darden's classroom and positioned myself outside, pretending to sort papers from my volunteer folder. Through the cracked door, I discerned Darden's voice, low and urgent. "Your mother is becoming a significant complication. If she persists in interfering, I'll have no alternative but to fail you this semester. You understand the implications for your academic transcript, don't you?" "I know," Ella whispered. "I'm sorry. I'll talk to her." "Talk is no longer sufficient. I need you to delete all our emails, every single one, today." My phone buzzed. The recording app was capturing every word. I forced myself to walk away before Darden discovered me. In the main office, I busied myself with filing, my mind racing. He was escalating, attempting to obliterate the evidence. That afternoon, I observed Ella during lunch through the cafeteria windows. She sat alone, absently picking at her food. Millie approached several times, but Ella waved her away. The isolation tactic, a classic predatory maneuver. I'd seen it in every documentary we'd watched together. When Ella arrived home, she went straight to her laptop. Through the monitoring software I'd installed weeks ago, I watched her access the clandestine email account. My heart sank as she began systematically deleting messages. But what she didn't realize was that I had already backed up everything to multiple cloud services, including those with robust deleted content recovery features. "How was school?" I asked, entering her room. She slammed the laptop shut. "Fine. Ella, we need to discuss—" "There's nothing to discuss." She stood up, clutching her laptop defensively. "You're absolutely ruining my life. Professor Darden is the only instructor who genuinely believes in me, and you're destroying that connection. He's manipulating you, sweetheart. What he's doing isn't normal or acceptable. You don't understand anything." She pushed past me, heading for the bathroom. I heard the distinct click of the lock. 20 minutes later, she emerged, pale and shaky. The morning sickness was intensifying. I had scheduled another doctor's appointment for the following day, this time with an OB/GYN specializing in adolescent patients. Dr. Morgan had recommended her, a professional entirely outside Darden's pervasive sphere of influence. That night, sleep eluded me. I compulsively checked the recording app, watching for any new messages. Around 2 a.m., one materialized from the burner number. "You handled things well today. Remember, our secret preserves your special status. Delete this immediately." Ella deleted it within moments, but I had the screenshot. The next morning, I informed Ella we had a doctor's appointment. She protested, but I was resolute. Dr. Holloway was gentle and utterly professional, confirming the pregnancy was approximately 6 weeks along. She meticulously discussed Ella's options, emphasizing that Ella had choices and ample time to decide. Ella sat in silence throughout, arms wrapped protectively around her middle. In the parking lot afterward, Ella finally spoke. He said, if I told anyone, he'd ensure I never got into any honors programs. He said he'd tell everyone I seduced him. that I threw myself at him. I pulled her into a tight embrace. None of this is your fault. Not a single bit of it. But I did throw myself at him, she sobbed. I wore the outfits he bought. I met him during his prep periods. I sent him pictures. You are 15 years old. He is an adult in a position of immense power. This responsibility falls squarely on him, not on you. We remained in the car for an hour while Ella wept. She recounted the insidious, gradual progression. How it commenced with compliments on her intellect, then exclusive attention, then material gifts, then requests for private photographs, then meetings in vacant classrooms. How he convinced her she was mature enough to handle an adult relationship. That age was merely an arbitrary figure when two souls truly connected. I recorded her entire confession on my phone with Ella's explicit permission. Evidence. Always evidence. When we arrived home, Jane was waiting on her porch with Millie. We need to talk, she said urgently. Millie observed something today. Inside, Millie nervously twisted her hands. Professor Darden had another girl in his classroom during lunch, a 7th grader. He was presenting her with a gift box, precisely like the ones he used to give Ella. My blood ran cold. He was already grooming his next target. Her name's Stella, Millie continued. She's in my sister's grade. She's been boasting about how Professor Darden considers her exceptionally unique. Ella's body stiffened beside me. He told me I was the only one, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jane and I exchanged grim glances. This was a far larger issue than just Ella. How many girls had there been? How many more would there be? We need to warn her parents, Jane declared. They won't believe us, I countered. Not without irrefutable proof. And if Darden discovers we're communicating with other families, he's already suspicious. Ella interjected quietly. Today, he inquired if I'd been discussing us with anyone. He claimed he has friends who relay information to him. The subsequent few days were a meticulous, perilous dance. I maintained my volunteer presence, closely observing Darden's movements. Jane diligently documented everything Millie noticed. Ella continued attending school, enduring his class, and feigning normalcy while the recording app meticulously captured every interaction. Then Thursday arrived. I was filing documents in the main office when the principal's secretary asked me to deliver some papers to the music wing. As I walked down the deserted hallway, I heard voices emanating from the orchestra room. The door was slightly ajar. You possess remarkable potential, Stella. Not many students demonstrate your unique talent. I immediately recognized Darden's voice. I cautiously peered through the crack and observed him seated far too close to a young girl on the piano bench, his hand resting on her shoulder. She appeared visibly uncomfortable, but was attempting to force a smile. I raised my phone and began recording video through the crack. Darden was showing her something on his phone. Images of glittering jewelry, precisely as he had done with Ella. The girl subtly shifted away, but he leaned in closer. These could be yours if you're willing to put in the effort. Private tutoring sessions, just you and me. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I recorded. This was compelling evidence of a predatory pattern, precisely what we so desperately needed. I backed away quietly and hurried to the nearest restroom, where I immediately uploaded the video to multiple cloud services. That afternoon, Ella arrived home in tears. He knows something's wrong. He kept staring at me throughout class, and afterward, he told me I seemed distant. He wants to meet tomorrow during his prep period to reconnect. You are not going, I stated firmly. If I don't, he'll fail me. He already gave me a D on my last essay, and it was perfect. I spent hours on it. I examined the essay. She was absolutely correct. It was an excellent piece of work. He had inexplicably marked it down for a supposed lack of depth and failure to grasp core concepts. Complete fabrications designed solely to control her. That night, I made a definitive decision. I called Jane. We need more parents involved. If it's just us, they can easily dismiss us as hysterical. But if multiple families come forward, Millie mentioned her friend Kat said Darden made her uncomfortable last year. Perhaps her parents would be willing to talk to us. We spent the entire weekend carefully reaching out. 3 more families agreed to meet with us, and 2 had daughters who had received similar gifts and peculiar attention from Darden. 1 family had already transferred their daughter to a different school due to unsettling vibes from him. Monday morning, Ella woke up violently ill. The morning sickness was escalating, and the relentless stress was undoubtedly exacerbating it. I kept her home, which triggered another relentless barrage of texts from Darden's burner phone. Your absence has been noted. This will adversely affect your grade. Ignoring me is childish, Ella. I expected a higher level of maturity from you. You have until the end of the day to respond, or I will be compelled to take formal action. The threats escalated throughout the day. By evening, he had sent a formal email to my account, carbon copying the principal, expressing profound concern about Ella's sudden behavioral shifts and her rapidly declining academic performance. He suggested a parent-teacher conference to discuss her troubling trajectory. I responded professionally, agreeing to a conference, but insisting it include the principal and the guidance counselor. Darden immediately backtracked, stating he preferred to handle such sensitive matters privately first. Tuesday, Ella returned to school. I watched from my volunteer post as she walked toward his classroom. Through the window, I observed him gesture for her to approach his desk while other students were filing in. He leaned close, speaking in hushed tones. Ella nodded mechanically and returned to her seat. The recording app later revealed he had told her, "Your mother is making things exceedingly difficult. If she requests that conference with the administration, I'll have no choice but to share some grave concerns about your behavior. The photographs you sent me, for instance. The administration takes an extremely dim view of students who actively pursue their teachers. The victim blaming made me physically ill, but it also solidified my resolve. That afternoon, something utterly unexpected occurred. The school nurse called me. Mrs. Tremaine, Ella collapsed during her physical education class. We've summoned an ambulance. I raced to the hospital, my heart pounding in my ears. Ella was conscious, but incredibly pale, hooked up to intravenous fluids. The attending physician explained she was severely dehydrated and exhibiting clear signs of extreme stress. They ran additional blood tests, which confirmed the pregnancy and indicated concerning hormone levels. She absolutely needs to avoid stress, the doctor stated emphatically. Whatever is happening, it's severely impacting her physical health. Ella squeezed my hand weakly. I can't do this anymore, Mom. I can't pretend everything's all right. I can't sit in his class, knowing... She touched her stomach lightly. That's when I knew we could no longer afford to wait. Professor Darden's psychological torment was literally making my daughter sick, but I also knew we needed one more irrefutable piece of evidence. Something undeniable that even his formidable connections couldn't explain away. Ella, I began carefully. Would you be willing to wear a wire? She looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. What do you mean? Just a tiny recording device, in case he says anything incriminating. He's too meticulous during school hours. He only says things when we're completely alone. Then we will create that opportunity, but safely, with me nearby. Ella was silent for a prolonged moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. But how? I've given this considerable thought. You'll ask to meet him at the coffee shop on Main Street. It's a public place, with plenty of witnesses. Tell him you desperately need to discuss your grades, that you're profoundly worried about your academic future. I'll be seated at the next table, unobtrusive. He won't appreciate meeting in public. Then he'll suggest an alternative. Either way, we'll have him on recording making that suggestion. We returned home that night with a meticulously crafted plan. Ella texted Darden from her regular phone, the one he wasn't aware I was monitoring. Can we talk? I'm genuinely worried about my grades. Could we meet at the coffee shop after school tomorrow? His response was immediate. Coffee shops are far too public. Come to my classroom after school. My mom is picking me up right after school. The coffee shop is literally the only time I can meet. There was a long, agonizing pause, then, fine, 4 p.m. Come alone. I had Jane stationed in the coffee shop by 3:30, feigning work on her laptop. I arrived at 3:45, taking a seat 2 tables away with my back to Ella's designated meeting spot. Ella walked in at precisely 4 p.m., wearing the small recording device I purchased online, discreetly pinned to her shirt. Professor Darden arrived 5 minutes late, meticulously scanning the entire shop before finally sitting down opposite Ella. I could hear their conversation with crystal clarity through the earpiece connected to Ella's wire. This is profoundly inappropriate, Ella, he began, his voice low. Meeting like this could be severely misconstrued. I'm just incredibly worried about my grades, Ella said, her voice shaky yet resolute. You said my last essay was terrible, but I worked truly hard on it. Your work has been consistently declining since you began pulling away from me. You know precisely what you need to do to rectify this situation. What do you mean? I heard him sigh impatiently. Don't play coy, Ella. You were so eager before, so willing. Now you behave as if what we share is somehow wrong. Your mother is systematically poisoning your mind. What we share is unique, precious. Age is irrelevant when two souls connect so deeply. You said you understood that, didn't you? I'm 15, Ella said quietly, her voice almost lost. Age is merely a number. You are remarkably mature for your age. That's precisely why I chose you. My hands clenched into tight fists. He had just brazenly admitted to choosing her, to actively pursuing her. But the baby? Ella began, her voice trembling. What baby? His voice turned sharp, laced with sudden panic. Ella, what in the world are you talking about? A chilling silence descended. I could hear Ella's rapid, shallow breathing through the wire. Answer me, Darden demanded, his voice growing dangerously low. What baby? I'm pregnant, Ella whispered, the words barely audible. I heard a chair scrape loudly. Through my peripheral vision, I saw Darden lean menacingly across the table. You're lying, he hissed, his face contorted. You're trying to ensnare me. I'm not lying. The doctor confirmed it. Then, you'll take care of it. I will personally pay for it. No one needs to ever know. I already told my mom. Darden's hand shot across the table, his fingers clamping brutally around Ella's wrists. You did what? Let go, Ella said, her voice suddenly louder, tinged with pain. You're hurting me. Do you have any conception of what you've done? My career? My entire family? Let go of her. I surged to my feet, spinning to confront them. Darden instantly released Ella's wrist, his face rapidly cycling through shock, searing rage, and calculating self-preservation. Angry red marks were already forming on Ella's delicate skin where he had gripped her. This is a setup, he spat, rising to his feet. You're attempting to frame me. Frame you for what? I asked calmly, my voice surprisingly steady. For actively pursuing my 15-year-old daughter, for getting her pregnant, for threatening her academic future if she didn't comply? Other customers were now openly staring. Jane had her phone out, meticulously recording everything unfolding. Darden noticed and took an involuntary step back. I'll have your daughter expelled, he said quietly, his voice laced with venom. I'll ensure she never gains admission to any reputable institution. I will utterly ruin both of you. Try it, I said, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. We possess everything. The emails, the texts, the illicit gifts, the crystal clear recordings, everything. His face went utterly pale. Without uttering another word, he turned abruptly and bolted from the coffee shop. Ella collapsed against me, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her tight while Jane immediately dialed the police. Not the local department, but the state police. We had successfully bypassed Darden's brother entirely. That night, Ella's wrist had bruised into a clear, stark handprint. I photographed it from every conceivable angle. The recording from the wire was undeniably crystal clear. Darden admitting to choosing her, explicitly stating age didn't matter, attempting to coerce her into terminating the pregnancy, threatening us. But I knew, with chilling certainty, that this was far from over. Darden had far too much to lose. He would retaliate with every ounce of his considerable influence, and Ella was already paying an unbearable price, both physically and emotionally. The true battle had only just begun. The state police arrived within 30 minutes. 2 detectives in unmarked vehicles pulled up outside the coffee shop. Their approach was professional and methodically precise. Detective Martha Collier introduced herself while her partner, Detective Thomas Miller, began taking statements from the astonished witnesses. I watched Darden's face drain of all color through the window as he sat in his car, frantically typing on his phone. Ella trembled beside me as Detective Collier gently examined her wrist, photographing the bruising from multiple angles. The detective's expression remained neutral, but I caught the subtle tightening around her eyes. She had clearly encountered such cases before. "We'll need both of you to come to the station," Detective Collier said quietly. "We have a specialized interview room for cases of this sensitive nature." At the state police headquarters, Ella underwent a meticulous forensic interview with a highly trained specialist while I methodically provided all our painstakingly documented evidence. The encrypted folders, the multitude of screenshots, the damning audio recordings, everything. Detective Miller painstakingly cataloged each piece, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he meticulously created the official record. "This is exceptionally extensive documentation," he remarked, looking up from the screen, a note of grim respect in his voice. "You've done outstanding work preserving this evidence." The interview spanned 4 grueling hours. Ella emerged utterly exhausted, but paradoxically lighter, as if confiding in trained professionals had lifted an immense weight she had been carrying alone. The specialist explained they possessed sufficient grounds for an immediate arrest warrant. That very night, Professor Darden was apprehended at his residence. Jane texted me a photo someone had posted on the neighborhood's social media page. Darden being led out in handcuffs while his wife stood stunned in the doorway, her face a mask of profound shock. The arrest occurred at precisely 9 p.m., ensuring maximum visibility to the neighborhood. The following morning, the school campus erupted with uncontrolled rumors. I kept Ella home while the investigation rapidly expanded. Detective Collier called to inform us that Darden's work computer had been seized along with his personal devices. They had already unearthed deleted photos and messages exchanged with multiple students, spanning a period of 3 years. Stella's parents called me that afternoon, their voices trembling with outrage and disbelief. Their daughter had finally admitted Darden had been systematically grooming her, showing her jewelry, and overtly requesting special private sessions. 2 more families came forward by evening. The insidious pattern was always identical. Initial compliments, followed by gifts, then demands for secrecy, culminating in a gradual escalation of inappropriate contact. Darden's brother, the precinct commander, attempted to brazenly intervene. He appeared unannounced at the state police headquarters, aggressively demanding to review the case files, arrogantly claiming jurisdictional authority. Detective Collier calmly informed him he had been recused due to an undeniable conflict of interest. When he persisted, threatening to make calls to people who matter, she unhesitatingly had security escort him from the premises. The school board convened an emergency meeting. Darden's wife sat silently in the back row, while a torrent of enraged parents demanded immediate answers. How had this abhorrent behavior gone utterly unnoticed? Why hadn't the administration acted on previous, unspoken concerns? The principal reluctantly admitted that several teachers had mentioned Darden's overly friendly demeanor with female students. But without concrete documented evidence, they had regrettably dismissed it as merely his enthusiastic teaching style. Ella's physical condition worsened considerably over the subsequent days. The immense stress triggered severe morning sickness and persistent cramping. Dr. Holloway meticulously monitored her, deeply concerned about the viability of the pregnancy given Ella's tender age and profound emotional state. I held Ella's hand through countless ultrasounds and blood draws, watching my daughter endure consequences no 15-year-old should ever be forced to face. The prosecutor assigned to the case, a formidable woman named Maria Stone, who specialized in crimes against children, met with us to discuss the charges. She meticulously explained the serious charges: sexual abuse of a minor, using a position of authority for sexual exploitation, witness intimidation, and evidence tampering. The deleted messages and photos, now fully recovered, unequivocally demonstrated a clear and sustained pattern of predatory behavior. "He's looking at 15 to 20 years, she stated grimly, reviewing the mountain of evidence. The multiple victims and his brazen attempt to destroy evidence weigh heavily against him. Darden's attorney attempted to negotiate a plea deal, lamely claiming his client suffered from undiagnosed depression and momentary poor judgment. The prosecutor unequivocally refused. With Ella's harrowing recorded confession and the undeniable physical evidence of assault at the coffee shop, they possessed an airtight case. 3 weeks later, Ella miscarried. The cramping began during breakfast, and by lunch, we were at the hospital. She gripped my hand tightly as the doctor gently confirmed what we both knew was tragically happening. Ella sobbed, not from crushing sadness, but from a complex, overwhelming mix of relief and guilt that I patiently helped her understand was completely normal given the circumstances. Your body instinctively knew what was best for you, Dr. Holloway explained gently. This is not uncommon in very young pregnancies, especially under such severe emotional and physical stress. The miscarriage became a crucial part of the criminal case. It was irrefutable evidence of the profound physical and emotional trauma Darden had inflicted upon Ella. Ella struggled immensely with the painful publicity of her most private anguish becoming a cold, legal documentation, but she ultimately understood its critical importance to securing justice. More victims emerged during the intensifying investigation. A former student, now thriving in college, bravely contacted the prosecutor after seeing Darden's arrest reported online. She had been too terrified to report him 4 years prior when he had cornered her after school and inappropriately touched her. Her compelling testimony established a disturbing pattern of abuse extending back to when Darden first began his teaching career. Darden's wife promptly filed for divorce and moved in with her sister. She made a shocking discovery: a hidden folder on their shared home computer containing hundreds of illicit photos of female students, some clearly taken without their knowledge during class time. She immediately turned everything over to the prosecutors, her profound disgust for her husband's actions overcoming any lingering loyalty. The trial date was set for 6 months out. Ella began intensive therapy with a specialist in trauma and adolescent abuse. The sessions were incredibly difficult. Ella had to confront how thoroughly Darden had manipulated her, how he had cunningly weaponized her academic ambitions, and her inherent need for approval against her. Some days she came home seething with anger, other days dissolved in tears. But slowly, painstakingly, she began to heal. I returned to work, but took every Friday off for Ella's therapy appointments and critical case meetings. My boss, herself a mother with a daughter Ella's age, was remarkably understanding. The school district immediately placed Darden on unpaid leave and initiated the implementation of stringent new oversight policies, including mandatory reporting training for all staff and clear, unambiguous guidelines about appropriate teacher-student interactions. Jane became our steadfast closest ally. She attended every single court hearing, meticulously took notes, and helped coordinate crucial information with the other affected families. When Ella felt too overwhelmed to face school, Millie would bring her assignments and sit with her, their friendship evolving from typical teenage concerns to something far deeper, more resilient, and profoundly supportive. The trial lasted 2 grueling weeks. Ella bravely testified via closed-circuit video to avoid the traumatic experience of directly facing Darden. She spoke with remarkable clarity about the systematic grooming, the insidious gifts, the escalating physical contact, and the horrific assault that resulted in her pregnancy. Her voice trembled occasionally, but it never wavered from the absolute truth. Darden took the stand in his own defense, audaciously claiming the relationship was consensual and that Ella had actively pursued him. The prosecutor systematically and devastatingly dismantled his testimony, presenting the emails where he explicitly called Ella special, the threatening texts aimed at her grades, the damning recording where he admitted to choosing her. When confronted with the irrefutable evidence of multiple victims, he finally broke down, his composure shattering. The jury deliberated for a mere 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Darden's face crumpled in utter disbelief as the verdict was read aloud. His brother sat silently in the back row, his police uniform a bitter, ironic symbol in the solemn courtroom. The judge ordered Darden remanded immediately, unequivocally denying bail pending his sentencing. At sentencing, Ella provided a powerful victim impact statement. She spoke eloquently about the brutal theft of her innocence, the insidious manipulation of her trust, the profound physical and emotional trauma that would undoubtedly take years to heal. Other victims also spoke, a chorus of brave voices Darden had desperately tried to silence forever. The judge sentenced Darden to 15 years in state prison with lifetime registration as a convicted sex offender. There would be no possibility of early release. The courtroom erupted in quiet, collective sobs of profound relief from the families who had fought so long and so hard for justice. The school district reached an out-of-court settlement for a substantial amount, sufficient to cover Ella's extensive therapy and her future educational needs. They swiftly implemented comprehensive policy changes and mandatory training for all staff. The principal retired early, his devastating failure to protect his students definitively ending his career. Ella returned to school the following year at a different district. She struggled initially, flinching involuntarily when male teachers called on her, but gradually, remarkably, she found her confidence again. Her grades soared, and she enthusiastically joined the debate team, finding her powerful voice in structured arguments about justice, ethics, and social responsibility. I trained and became a dedicated court advocate for abuse victims, using our harrowing experience to compassionately help other families navigate the incredibly complex and often intimidating legal system. Working tirelessly with local organizations, I helped 15 families in our first year alone, meticulously teaching them about crucial evidence preservation techniques and their fundamental legal rights. Ella sometimes spoke at training sessions, her courageous story serving as a vital beacon, helping other parents recognize the subtle, insidious warning signs of abuse. Darden's brother resigned from his position as precinct commander after an internal investigation uncovered that he had callously dismissed 3 previous complaints about his brother's inappropriate conduct. The new precinct commander promptly implemented mandatory training for all officers on how to sensitively handle abuse cases and to scrupulously avoid conflicts of interest. Ella graduated high school with distinguished honors. Her compelling college essay discussing her remarkable resilience and the paramount importance of speaking truth to power. She chose a university 3 states away, needing the physical distance to fully establish her burgeoning independence. I drove her to campus, both of us openly crying as we hugged goodbye, not from overwhelming sadness, but from the triumphant, profound joy of reaching this hard-won milestone. Today, Ella is a dedicated psychology student, planning to specialize in adolescent trauma therapy. She texts me daily, sharing small, precious victories and occasional, understandable setbacks. In therapy, she learned that healing is rarely linear, that some days are undoubtedly harder than others, but that mere survival itself is an undeniable, powerful form of victory. I keep a cherished photo on my desk of Ella at her graduation. Her mortarboard is slightly askew, her smile radiant and utterly genuine. Behind it sits a thick folder filled with heartfelt thank you notes from the countless families we've helped. Professor Darden stole so much from my daughter, but he utterly failed to steal her future. That belongs to Ella, and to Ella alone.